Caitlin Clark just made the boldest move of her WNBA career, and she didn't have to say a single word. No press conference, no Instagram post, no subtle like on social media. Just one quiet decision that sent shockwaves through the Indiana Fever organization and raised a question that no one in the league is ready to answer. Is Caitlin Clark done trusting the very team that drafted her? After re-aggravating a lingering groin injury, Clark didn't turn to the Fever's medical staff. She didn't report to team doctors. Instead, she walked away, straight to outside professionals, second opinions, third opinions, NBA-level specialists, and not a single update to her coaches or the training team. The face of the WNBA going rogue? Head coach Stephanie White admitted it herself. She hadn't spoken with Clark, neither had the trainers, and yet Clark had already seen new doctors, made new plans, and drawn a thick line in the sand. This wasn't just about pain. This was about trust, or rather, the complete collapse of it. And that was just the beginning. Because while Indiana scrambled to make sense of it all, Clark was spotted in a post-game pow-wow with members of a very different franchise. One that plays faster, shoots more, and might just be building a blueprint with her name on it. This isn't just a story about rehab. It's a slow-motion rebellion, a silent power play from the league's brightest star. And what happens next could change everything. What looked like a routine strain turned into a flashing red warning sign. Caitlin Clark's groin injury, first reported back in late May, wasn't supposed to be this serious. A few missed practices, a bit of rehab, maybe a game off here and there. That was the expectation. But the reality? A slow-healing, high-risk injury that refuses to go away. Experts have warned repeatedly that adductor strains are fragile and stubborn. They can't be rushed. They demand patience. And worst of all, they're incredibly easy to re-aggravate, especially for a player whose game relies on explosive movement, cuts, and deep pull-up threes. But instead of resting, Clark kept suiting up, playing through pain, competing while clearly hobbled. The Fever kept calling it day-to-day. Commentators kept calling it minor. And fans kept watching as she grimaced her way through minutes that never should have happened. Then came the breaking point. Clark re-aggravated the injury. And this time, she didn't go back to the Fever's trainers. She didn't sit down with the team's medical staff. She didn't even give them a status update. Instead, she went off the grid, seeking second and even third opinions from outside professionals, reporting NBA-level doctors. And for the first time all season, the Indiana Fever weren't just unsure about her recovery. They were completely out of the loop. Head coach Stephanie White looked just as confused as everyone else during her press conference. "I haven't seen her since last night. She's going to get some tests early in the week. We'll know more then." That wasn't a strategy. That was guesswork. Clark's silence wasn't accidental. It was intentional, calculated, controlled. Because sometimes an injury doesn't just test your body. It exposes everything that's broken around you. It didn't take long for fans to draw the comparison. A superstar player, a vague injury, a team medical staff kept at arm's length. If this all feels familiar, that's because it is. This is starting to look a lot like the Kawhi Leonard situation in San Antonio. Just like Kawhi, Caitlin Clark is showing signs of a player who no longer trusts her team. Not with her body, not with her future, and certainly not with her career. Think about it. Clark is the #1 draw in the league. She's not just Indiana's franchise player, she's the face of the WNBA. And yet, she's actively avoiding the very people paid to keep her on the court. That's not a small decision. That's a red flag the size of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And it's not just fan speculation. Multiple insiders have now reported that Clark's decision to seek outside medical help was driven by frustration with the Fever's rehab strategy. One source said, "Whatever the medical staff is doing right now, it's unfortunately not enough." Let that sink in. After nearly 2 months of pain, limited mobility, and repeated setbacks, Clark finally said, enough. She stopped listening to the people wearing Indiana Fever polos and started listening to the experts in NBA circles who actually specialize in long-term athlete recovery. And here's what makes it worse. Clark didn't even inform the Fever staff. No group texts, no team updates, not even a check-in from her agent. She simply vanished from their care and made her own calls. That kind of silence? That's not frustration. That's a total breakdown of trust. It's survival instinct. Because when you're the most targeted player in the league, hacked, bruised, and flagged every other game, you don't gamble on a rehab process that's already failed you once, especially not when your playoff hopes are slipping away. Caitlin Clark didn't just reject the team trainers. She made a statement without ever speaking a word. Trust issues with the medical staff were just the beginning. Because even when Caitlin Clark was healthy enough to play, something still felt off. From day one, Clark was forced into a system that never truly fit her. A motion-heavy, post-centric offense that slows the game down and funnels everything through the paint. It's an outdated blueprint, designed for bigs, not shooters, and certainly not for a generational scorer whose entire identity is built around deep range, quick decisions, and unpredictable rhythm. So why, exactly, was Caitlin Clark being told not to shoot? Multiple sources close to the Fever say Clark has been discouraged from taking her signature heat check threes, the very shots that made her a household name. And it's not just rumor. On a recent podcast, Caitlin herself hinted at the problem. If I hit 2 or 3 in a row, I'm probably going to launch a third, even if it's not advised. That wasn't confidence, that was resistance. A subtle jab at a coaching staff that would rather run outdated sets than unleash the full power of their star. All signs point to one person: head coach Stephanie White. White, a veteran of the old-school WNBA era, has stuck to a system that feels more like a cage than a launch pad. Her insistence on running the offense through post-ups and high-percentage paint touches has clashed from the start with Clark's natural instincts. And it shows. The team's rhythm has looked clunky, the spacing awkward, the pace painfully slow, and the results? Inconsistent at best, frustrating at worst. Imagine drafting Steph Curry and telling him to play back to the basket. That's what Indiana's doing. It's not a coaching strategy, it's sabotage. But what's most telling is that Clark hasn't fought this publicly. She hasn't blown up in interviews. She hasn't called out her coach. She stayed quiet, too quiet. And in pro sports, when a star stops talking, it usually means the decisions are already being made behind closed doors. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any headline. Before a recent game, the Indiana Fever held what they called a unity meeting, a moment to rally the team, reset the energy, align the locker room. But when it came time to show support, there was one glaring absence. No one from Caitlin Clark's inner circle showed up. Not her personal team, not her reps, not even a prepared statement, just radio silence. And that absence? It said everything. Behind the scenes, there had already been whispers of disconnect, tension with the coaching staff, frustration with her role, concerns about her long-term health being pushed aside in favor of short-term wins. But this was different. This wasn't rumor. This was action, or more accurately, deliberate inaction. Because when a franchise player's camp doesn't show up for a moment built around team unity, it doesn't feel like an oversight. It feels like a message. One that says, this is your meeting, not ours. That same week, Clark was limiting communication with trainers, refusing to update medical staff, seeking out third-party doctors. Meanwhile, her agent was going silent, and coach Stephanie White had no clue when or even if Clark would return to the lineup. The divide wasn't just growing, it was becoming impossible to ignore. It no longer felt like Clark was being positioned at the center of the franchise. It felt like she was orbiting around it, watching from the outside while the rest of the team tried to pretend nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Because for the first time since her arrival in Indiana, Caitlin Clark didn't just look like a rising superstar. She looked like a star who had already outgrown the team around her. And what happened next made that possibility feel dangerously real. It happened after the final buzzer. A quiet huddle, a few players, a few coaches, and standing right there in the middle of it, Caitlin Clark. At first, fans thought it was just a friendly post-game chat. But when the camera zoomed in, the mood shifted. Because this wasn't just Caitlin exchanging pleasantries after a hard-fought game, this was a strategic conversation. One that just so happened to include New York Liberty staff and Clark's own agent, standing just feet away from Breanna Stewart, laughing, talking, observing. And in that moment, everything changed. It wasn't long before clips of the secret pow-wow flooded social media. Fans started asking the same question. What is Caitlin Clark doing meeting privately with a rival team? With her agent by her side? This wasn't some random post-game handshake line. This was different. This was intentional. And here's where it gets even more suspicious. That same week, during the All-Star game, Caitlin Clark publicly traded away her assigned coach, Cheryl Reeve, and picked Liberty head coach Sandy Brondello instead, on national TV. With a smirk, people laughed at the time, said it was a funny moment. But now, it looks like a message, a very specific one. Because let's be honest, you don't swap coaches in front of millions of viewers unless you're trying to make a point. And Caitlin made it crystal clear. She'd rather run with Sandy Brondello, the same Sandy Brondello who runs a fast-paced offense, who lets her guards shoot freely, who coaches with modern spacing and elite tempo. The same coach leading a franchise that's been nothing but respectful, clean, and supportive toward Clark since day one. While other teams have gone after her, flagrant fouls, elbows to the back, hip checks into the baseline, The Liberty have done the exact opposite. They've played smart, they've played clean, and they've kept their arms wide open. Is it starting to add up? Because the New York Liberty aren't playing checkers, they're playing chess. If you've been paying attention, it's all right there. The playing style, the culture, the chemistry. The New York Liberty aren't just a good fit for Caitlin Clark. They're the perfect one. While Indiana tries to force her into a rigid, post-heavy system, the Liberty run one of the most explosive, guard-driven offenses in the league. It's fast, it's creative, it's built on ball movement, spacing, and perimeter shooting. The exact formula that made Clark a national icon. They don't just let their stars play, they let them breathe. And then there's Sabrina Ionescu, another sharp-shooting, floor-stretching point guard who just so happens to be one of Clark's biggest supporters. The two have shared mutual respect for years, even before Clark entered the league. On the court, their styles are eerily similar. Off the court, they've got that same relentless alpha dog energy. Put them together, that's a dynasty waiting to happen. And it's not just the style of play, it's the attitude. The Liberty have made it a point to treat Clark with dignity. No dirty fouls, no cheap shots, no rookie hazing, just mutual respect. Compare that to the way she's been hit, literally, by teams like the Sky or Sparks, and the contrast becomes crystal clear. New York didn't just keep it classy, they made her feel wanted. And now, the pieces are quietly falling into place. An all-star coach Clark already chose once. A fast system tailor-made for her game. A fellow star guard to share the spotlight. And an organization that's been playing the long game since day one. What does Indiana offer in comparison? Slow ball, stubborn schemes, growing tension with the coach, and now fractured trust with the front office and medical staff. Clark's not going to say it out loud, not yet, but actions speak louder than words. And right now, every sign is pointing toward New York. Most rookies don't even think about leaving their first team. They're locked into contracts. They're focused on adjusting to the league. They're expected to fall in line. But Caitlin Clark? She's not most rookies. From day one, she's carried herself like a brand, not just a player. She's a household name, a ratings juggernaut, a once-in-a-generation athlete who single-handedly doubled WNBA viewership the moment she touched a basketball. That kind of power? It comes with options. And right now, she may already be exploring them. Behind the scenes, the whispers are getting louder. People around the league are starting to ask the unthinkable. Could Caitlin Clark force her way out of Indiana before her rookie contract even ends? Under normal circumstances, that would sound ridiculous. But these aren't normal circumstances. Not when the most valuable player in the WNBA is actively avoiding team doctors, clashing with her coach, getting boxed into a system that doesn't suit her, and quietly aligning with a rival franchise. This isn't just frustration, it's a slow build toward leverage. Because Caitlin Clark knows something most rookies don't. She doesn't need to wait 4 years to get what she wants. All she has to do is make things uncomfortable. All she has to do is let the pressure simmer. And make no mistake, the Liberty are watching, waiting, preparing. They've already done the groundwork, publicly praised her, privately met with her, gave her a system she'd thrive in, surrounded her with talent, and most importantly, made her feel like a priority. That's not luck. That's a long-term strategy. Meanwhile, Indiana's front office is scrambling to hold it all together. But from the outside looking in, it's starting to look less like a franchise and more like a temporary stop on Caitlin Clark's journey. She doesn't owe them loyalty. Not after the hits, not after the silence, not after the missed medical calls and offensive schemes from 2005. What she owes is to herself and to her future. Caitlin Clark didn't just step into the WNBA, she changed it. From her first game, she shattered viewership records, sold out arenas, and brought an entire new generation of fans into the league. She's not just a player, she's a movement, a brand, a lightning rod of energy in a league that desperately needed a spark. But now, the very organization that was supposed to build around her seems more interested in containing her. Instead of unleashing her range, they've shackled her to a system she didn't ask for. Instead of protecting her health, they pushed her through an injury that keeps getting worse. And instead of building a future around the most important athlete in the sport, they've built a wall of silence and excuses. But Caitlin, she's done waiting. She's no longer asking for permission. She's seeking second and third opinions. She's choosing her own coaches. She's moving in silence, and every move is deliberate. Whether she stays in Indiana or not, one thing is clear. She's calling the shots now. And that ticking you hear? It's not just a countdown to the playoffs. It's a warning to Indiana, to the front office, to every franchise still playing by the old rules. You either adapt to Caitlin Clark or you watch her leave. Because the WNBA's biggest star isn't just rehabbing an injury. She's reclaiming control. And if the Liberty are the ones waiting at the finish line, well, maybe they've been playing the long game all along.